Over the last week, the Islamic Republic of Iran has seen its most devastating protests and repression in years, with some commentators arguing that this may be the end of the regime. While India has responded with strategic caution, both the protests and the crackdown should serve as a wake-up call to Indian leaders, thinkers and activists. To understand why, we must remember the deeper worlds that once bound India and Iran together. They have a lot in common today, as they have for at least 3,000 years, from languages to notions of state, from immigrant histories to culture and architecture. India and Iran were the great civilizational poles of South, Central and West Asia. The severing of these ties has had profound and devastating consequences for our entire neighborhood. In the last centuries of the Bronze Age, about 1500 BCE, clouds of dust followed herds of cattle, caravans of wagons and chariots as people moved, as they always have, between the steppe and the settlements of the Iranian plateau and the Punjab plains. In the edited volume Indo-Iranian Languages and Peoples, historians, archaeologists and linguists have shown that these early peoples spoke a common ancestor of later Sanskrit and Persian. Their notions of ritual and kingship too had a lot in common. They used the words Rita and Asha to mean the same thing, cosmic order, Deva and Daiva to mean divinity, Yajna and Yasna to mean sacrifice. Now, as early states began to develop in the Iranian plateau and northern India, ideas continued to circulate along this vast cultural and spatial zone. The shared inheritance would shape all empires in the region who drew from these ancient roots, cultures and symbols to speak to many diverse audiences. For example, let's look at the Kushans, who were Central Asians who ruled a chunk of Afghanistan and the Gangetic Plains from the 1st to the 3rd century CE. Now, the Kushans used the Persian imperial title of Shahenshah alongside the Sanskritic equivalent Raja, and they also called themselves Devaputra, which is an Indianization of the Roman title Divi Filius. They venerated gods with Zoroastrian aspects like Mitra and Nana, while building Buddhist monasteries and anthropomorphizing Hindu gods. Now, more generally, the motif of the king as a great hunter accompanied by a royal parasol or chhatra could be found both further east of the Kushans under the Gupta Empire from the 3rd to 6th century CE, and to the west under the Sassanid Shahs of Iran from the 3rd to the 7th century CE. Now, soon after that, this entire system was shaken by the expansion of Arab armies who were bearing the flag of Islam. Now, while Iran quickly lost its Zoroastrian political culture, ties to India still persisted. The Barmakid dynasty, who were famous viziers of the Muslim Abbasid Caliphate, were the former administrators or Pramukha of the Nabahar Buddhist monastery in Balkh. Now, think about it. Quite early in the history of Islam, the Arab world became plugged into the older Indo-Iranian network, resulting in a dynasty of former Buddhist administrators carrying Iranian and Sanskritic intellectual culture directly into the heart of a new Muslim empire. All of this suggests to us that we should think of India, Iran and beyond as one world evolving across a vast zone. Over the following centuries, speakers of various Turkic languages began to migrate into the Iranian plateau, some establishing their own kingdoms, as the Kushans, Huns and many other peoples had before them. On the very edge of this world were Parvenu raiders like the Ghaznavids and Ghurids. They were frontier elites who were Persian in culture, Afghan in social base, and Muslim holy warriors in propaganda. Now, while their brutal expansions in North India command the modern imagination, historical facts show that even as these kings claimed to be Ghazis slaughtering infidels, they actually retained some of the sensibilities of the older Indo-Iranian world. As we've seen in a lot of early editions of Thinking Medieval, they adapted Indian titles such as Avatara, Srimad and Rajadhiraja, and they also had a fascination with royal elephantry. The point here is that Islam didn't erase the Indo-Iranian world, it entered it. Sultanate conquests reinvigorated contacts between the Iranian plateau and northern India. Sanskritic knowledge borne by Kashmiri monks briefly spread deep into Iran, and meanwhile Sufi mystics of various ethnicities participated in a larger circulatory network stretching from Anatolia to Egypt to Bengal. By the 13th to 14th century CE, Arabic translations of Sanskrit yoga manuals were already being debated in Cairo, while texts like the Chandayan conveyed Sufi notions of divine love into Indian popular epics. About 2 centuries later, with the rise of new Persian-speaking sultanates in North India and the Deccan, the stage was set for India to decisively shift the gravitational center of this world eastwards. From the 1500s to the 1800s, Persian became one of the most important languages in the Indian subcontinent. From crucibles in the war-torn Iranian plateau and Central Asian caravan cities, waves of Persian-speaking bureaucrats, historians, teachers, engineers, and warriors found welcoming patrons, relations, and positions in Indian courts. This remarkably paralleled the expansion of Sanskritic culture into the Indian Ocean world many centuries prior. Historians Sanjay Subramaniam and Muzaffar Alam have shown that Persian, like Sanskrit, was a political technology. It offered a universal but adaptable notion of kingship. Through Persian, the Mughals and the Deccan Sultans could simultaneously address Iranian, Central Asian, and Indian audiences. For example, the Qutub Shahis of Golconda, when founding Hyderabad, called the city New Isfahan while simultaneously designing the iconic Charminar to echo the towering temple gateways of medieval Warangal. But irrespective of ethnicity, Persian speakers also had a shared vocabulary of revenue accounting, diplomatic protocol, courtly etiquette, and all of this could be quickly used to build states, legitimize dynasties, travel and trade, or just obtain royal favor. The result was this remarkable Indo-Persianate world where Rajputs bore Persian farmans, Iranians wrote poetry in Indian languages like Dakhini, and Brahmin bureaucrats amassed revenue figures in Persian. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying this was some kind of just, equal, or peaceful world, whatever the high-minded concepts of the royal courts. The point is that it was a shared world. While part of the wider Islamic ecumeny, it was distinctively Indian, and its notions of identity and culture relied on circulation and mutual benefit. The Indian Ocean added a maritime dimension to all these connections. Even as Persian bureaucrats expanded into India from the 1600s to the 1700s, Indian merchants, especially banyas, dominated the Western Indian Ocean. As we saw in an earlier edition of Thinking Medieval, in the Persian port of Bandar Abbas, a third of the houses belonged to Indians. Hindu temples and processions marked their ritual presence, and Persian officials negotiated with banyas over taxation and public order. Indian capital underwrote Persian Gulf commerce. Now, unfortunately, this world has not survived the rise of modern nation-states. While the British Raj allowed for new forms of mobility, it also imposed colonial intellectual systems and borders, which led to new nationalisms and hard religious identities. Colonialism froze a world that had always been in movement. Persian declined as a state language in India, Indo-Iranian repertoires fragmented, and the steppe and the mountains became a playground for European great power balancing. India and Iran became separate geopolitical entities, each with its own modernizing project. After the Iranian Revolution in the 1970s, Iran insisted on a narrow ideological interpretation of its history and culture. India is now doing something similar. A once intimate historical relationship has now been reduced to limited strategic engagement under the shadow of American tariff bullying. At the same time, the profound debates of justice and rulership which once concerned so many medieval Indo-Persian texts have faded as Indian and Iranian authoritarianism have seized technocracy, internet shutdowns, misinformation, illegal arrest, crackdowns on protests. Now, Iran's history should show us that even the most pluralistic regions can harden into brutally ideological states when circulation stops and regimes lose accountability. Indians must decide if we will repeat that story or learn from it. This might be a controversial opinion, so if you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear them. Follow us everywhere on social media. You can find me on Instagram at Anabuddha and on Twitter at Ekanisetti. We'll see you in a few weeks.